You know, in the super high-tech world of cancer treatment, our best weapon is information. But what happens if the very data we're relying on has a massive blind spot? We're about to dig into a study that shows how our fight against cancer is being limited by the very information we use to wage it.
Okay, so let's start with a really fundamental question. It seems simple, right? But it's actually incredibly complex. And the short answer is, of course, no. But how they're different and whether we're actually seeing the full picture, well, that's what modern cancer research is all about.
So in this explainer, we're going to follow the breadcrumbs laid out in this really groundbreaking study. We'll start with the problem, dive into a huge genetic detective story, uncover some hidden patterns, and then ask, how do we redraw the map of cancer so it works for everyone?
All right, first up, let's really get into the core of the problem. There's this incredible promise of personalized cancer medicine. It's called precision oncology, but it's all built on a foundation that, well, it might just have a huge crack in it.
The idea behind it is just brilliant. Instead of this one-size-fits-all approach, we can actually look at a tumor's unique genetic code, find its weak spots, and then hit it with drugs designed for that specific vulnerability. But to do that, you need a totally complete and accurate genetic blueprint for every kind of cancer out there.
And here's the problem. Just look at this chart. This tells us where those blueprints are coming from. A staggering 86% of the data in our biggest cancer studies comes from people of European ancestry. Think about that. 86%. This isn't just a little imbalance. It means our entire understanding of cancer is fundamentally lopsided.
Now, just to be super clear, when we say genetic ancestry, we're not talking about race in a social sense. This is a scientific tool. It's a way to measure genetic similarities between populations that have popped up over thousands of years of human migration. It really just helps us understand genetic variation on a global scale.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this blind spot, a team of researchers basically became genetic detectives. They embarked on this massive hunt, digging through 2 decades of cancer data, looking for clues that maybe everyone else had missed.
And when I say massive, I mean it. The scale of this study is just mind-boggling. They conducted what's called a meta-analysis on more than 250,000 tumor samples. They pulled together data from 2 of the largest cancer sequencing projects in the U.S. And this graphic really shows you just how wide they cast their net. They looked at 14 different common cancers. We're talking everything from brain cancer and lung cancer all the way to prostate and skin cancer, to see if the same patterns were showing up again and again.
So, let's get to the good stuff, the findings. When the researchers started sifting through this mountain of data, they found some really startling patterns, consistent things that were hiding in plain sight within the tumor DNA.
The first big clue was actually about what wasn't there. They noticed that some of the most common, well-known mutations that we know drive cancer, well, they were showing up way less often in tumors from patients of non-European ancestry.
Take the gene TERT, for example. It's a big one in cancer. But as you can see with all those blue dots, mutations in its promoter, which is kind of like the on-off switch for the gene, were way less frequent in patients of both African and East Asian ancestry. And this wasn't just in one cancer type, it was happening across the board. That's not a coincidence, that's a pattern.
But it gets even more interesting. It wasn't just about what was missing. The second finding, and this is maybe even more urgent, was that other important mutations were actually more common in these same groups. And these are mutations we can do something about. This points to some major missed opportunities.
And this is the really critical part. We are talking about mutations that have FDA-approved drugs right now that can target them. Things like ERB2 mutations in lung cancer or MET in kidney cancer. So these aren't just numbers on a chart, these are potential lifelines, actual treatment paths that we might be completely overlooking because we just weren't looking in the right places.
So you've got these missing mutations on one hand and these overlooked mutations on the other. All these clues led the researchers to ask a really profound question, one that challenges the very tools we use to find what causes cancer in the first place. To get this next part, you need to understand a term called driver burden. Just think of it like a score. Based on our current list of known cancer genes, it's the total number of cancer-causing genetic hits that we can find in any one tumor. And what the study found here was, honestly, it was shocking. In both kidney cancer and endometrial cancer, that total driver burden, that score, was way lower in patients of African ancestry compared to patients of European ancestry. The tumors just had fewer of the known bad guy mutations that we look for.
So this leads to the million-dollar question, right? Does this mean these tumors are somehow simpler? Or, and this seems much more likely, is it just that our maps, the list of cancer genes we're using to navigate, are incomplete? It's like, imagine you're an astronomer, but your star chart only shows the northern hemisphere. You wouldn't look south and say, guess there are no stars down there. No, you'd say, I need a better chart.
And that's what this is all about. This brings us to what we do now. Because this isn't just some interesting academic finding. This is about literally redrawing the map of cancer to make sure that the future of treatment is better and more effective for every single person.
So, the main takeaway here is crystal clear. Our tools are only as good as the data we build them with, and right now, that data has a huge blind spot. That means we're at risk of misunderstanding how a tumor is working, and even worse, missing the chance to give the right patient the right life-saving drug. The only way to fix this is to build bigger, more diverse, more inclusive genetic databases. This isn't just about being fair, it's about making the science better for all of us. And that really leaves us with this powerful final thought, straight from the researchers themselves. This isn't a local problem you can solve in one lab or one country. If we're going to build a truly complete and equitable map of cancer, it has to be a global effort so that the incredible promise of precision medicine can actually reach every single patient who needs it.